In this video I will be installing a LVL ridge beam, cutting and installing rafters, and installing zip roof sheathing, and using zip tape to seal all of the joints to make the roof waterproof until the metal roof is installed. My ridge beam is made from laminated veneer lumber, which is referred to as a LVL. It is 48 feet long and is stronger and more stable than a piece of lumber the same size. When my LVL was delivered, the boom truck was broken down, and they were not sure when it was going to be repaired, so I needed to lift it to the attic level by hand. I used a come-along to pull the LVL up to the second floor through the door opening. I needed a high point to attach the come-along, so I screwed a 16-foot 2x12 to the floor and to the ceiling joist in the attic. This acted as a temporary crane to lift the LVL up to the attic. Next I used the come-along to raise it up onto the attic level. Next I added the studs for the end wall that follow the slope of the roof, and I added the top plate. This gives me a rigid area for the LVL to sit on. When I was lifting the LVL it was flexing a lot, so I added a temporary support to the middle. The 45-foot span between the end walls is too long to go unsupported, so I added vertical and diagonal bracing to make it into a truss. When you purchase dimensional lumber, it is not usually perfectly straight. I am checking to see if it has a bow. This bow is called the crown, and you want the crown side up when you are laying out your rafters so it will not sag when you add your plywood on top. I used the first rafter that I cut out as a template, so all of the rest will be the same. I used the skill saw to make the long cuts, then used the jigsaw to finish the inside corner of the seat. The rafters were leaned up to the attic level, and then set in place between each of the ceiling joists. I installed the rafters at quarter points along the LVL. This will keep it from getting pushed out from all of the weight on it. Once the LVL has been stabilized, the rest of the rafters can be installed. At this point the rafters do not extend beyond the outside wall, so I cut 2x6s to 5 feet long, and used my chalk line to snap a reference line that would give me a 16-inch overhang. Then I lined up the end of my rafter tail with the chalk line, and nailed them to the rafters. After all of the tails are installed, the 2x6 fascia can be added. I added the studs up to the middle of the building, which gave me something for the ridge beam to sit on. I added some temporary 2x4s to the wall, and raised the LVL in the same way that I had done the others with a come-along. I laid out the roof sheathing on the attic floor joist to make a temporary floor that I could set the ladder on. Like before, I added my initial rafters at the quarter points to stabilize the ridge beam. Since all of the rafters were made using the same template, they are centering the ridge beam at the same time. The rafters are being installed in pairs across from each other so they don't push the ridge off to one side. Please take the time to like this video, and subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more of my content. To make an overhang on the slope, I attached 2x6s to the first rafter, and cantilevered it over the end wall, creating what is called a ladder. There is also another piece of wood between the ladder rungs, and is flush with the outside wall, that holds the 16-inch spacing. Attaching the fascia would be very difficult without help because I could not hold it and nail it at the same time in this awkward position, so I made an L bracket, and screwed it to the underside of the ladder. I cut the fascia, and nailed the two pieces together where they meet at the peak of the roof. Then I pulled it up from the attic, and straddled it over the top of the roof. From here I pushed it over the edge of the ladder, and lowered it into the L bracket. Now all I had to do was to nail it in place. To move my plywood to the roof, I leaned 2x6s that are 12 feet long up against the ceiling joists, and I nailed blocking at 2 different levels to support the plywood as I was lifting it. With the plywood up on the top block, I can reach it from the attic to pull it up and slide it out onto the roof. The roof sheathing is 5/8" zip plywood. I used a 2x4 with spacer blocks screwed to it to keep my rafters straight while I nailed the plywood. Zip tape is made with an adhesive that is designed to bond with the surface of the zip sheathing. When you apply it, you need to start at the bottom and work your way up the roof and overlap the tape like you are putting on shingles. Where one piece of tape ends, you will need to overlap the previous tape by 5 inches. It is important for the tape to be laid out smoothly without kinks so there is no place for water to get in. There are dashed lines around the edges of the zip plywood that are a guide that will help keep the tape centered over the seam. After all of the tape is on, you will need to use a rubber roller on all of the tape seams to ensure a good bond. The zip roller has little Z's that are pressed into the tape, so you can tell that it has been rolled. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I will be making a video about building the carport by myself soon.